In my tarot card readings, I tend to like to choose decks which don't have the so-called Minor Arcana illustrated. A non-illustrated Minor Arcana is known as a pip deck. Those pips are simply numbers in suits. So instead of seeing an interpretation of what the meaning of each card is illustrated as a scene in the card, I instead think in terms of what the numbers mean, and then what the suits mean, and then I put those things together, and then within the context of the reading, I get a picture as to what the cards are trying to tell me. A lot of people think that it's easier to read with illustrated tarot decks, and so they consider that to be sort of a beginner's deck, when you can find illustrations of what each of those minor arcana mean. But I don't agree with that. I feel like it's actually creating more of a problem for you later to open up your mind as to what those pip cards can mean. And my recommendation is to actually start out with the non-illustrated pips. I also prefer using the more ancient decks, especially at first, because the so-called major arcana, or trump cards as they're known, are based more on traditional imagery rather than on the esoteric imagery which they have been associated with in later years. Remember that the tarot is a game, and it's good to know what the tarot actually is in its early iterations in order to understand what you're doing when you're reading tarot cards. Then moving on to other interpretations of what the tarot means can make for a richer experience. A lot of people believe that the ancient tarot had the images for the trump cards chosen in order that certain kinds of occult mysteries could be kept within a game. It was like hiding esoteric secrets in plain sight. And I believe that there is something to that, although it's never going to be possible to prove it. What I do know is that the ancient tarot of Marseille and also the ancient Italian tarot have symbolism that's very pure in the trump cards, and also very little symbolism in the pip cards. And that's as it should be. So let's look at the pips today. There are 4 tarot suits: wands, cups, swords, and coins. When reading, I look at each of the suits as aspects of life. The wands are usually work and enterprise. The cups are the emotions, but also the inner spirit in the soul. The swords are usually conflict, and the coins are physical assets, often money. Now let's move through each of the numbers and look and see what those numbers can mean. You can use any numerical system you desire. So any type of numerology will work. I just recommend that you keep it consistent. You're basically setting up a lexicon or language of communication between your conscious and your deep mind. And so consistency is very helpful. I prefer to use the Kabbalistic meanings of the numbers 1 through 10. So aces are existing on the very top of the tree of life, the crown, number 1. Those are considered the roots of each of their suit. And as such, they have all power over everything that this suit represents. They oftentimes represent a new beginning, but also mastery and absolute control over that area of life. So the Ace of Wands is oftentimes a brand new job, a promotion in a job, a new business, or the mastery of some sort of skill within your work. Whereas the Ace of Cups oftentimes represents an opening in your spiritual life, sometimes a new relationship or new love. Very often it represents inner mastery over your spiritual practice. The Ace of Swords represents winning and triumph over any kind of conflict. Very often the Ace of Swords indicates that there was a conflict that the parent or the person in question has overcome or mastered, and they are the winner. The Ace of Coins represents a new source of income or a revitalization of a source of income. If there's a new home or a new car or some kind of new possession, that can also be indicated by that Ace of Coins. But the Ace also represents a type of mastery over the realms of physical assets and money. The twos are unstable. As soon as the oneness that is the ace starts to split into being relationships, the two immediately begins to seek its mate, immediately begins to seek its complement. So twos oftentimes will show up in readings as impatience or dissatisfaction. And that's very different from what a lot of people see twos as. I see twos as being unstable and seeking equilibrium and resolution. There's some sort of dissonance that wants to be resolved, oftentimes manifesting as impatience. So the Two of Wands, when you are looking for some result in your work, your ships to come in and you look out over an empty sea, if you're looking forward to having some sort of a promotion or something good happen for you and it's not happening quickly enough, it can often be a Two of Wands experience. However, usually the Two of Wands represents that it's on its way, but that you need to allow it some time. Similar in the Two of Cups, there's an impatience, but oftentimes it's impatience with oneself, thinking that you should be farther along than you are, feeling that you're not good enough and what's wrong with me, rather than giving yourself time and space to grow at your own pace. Now, yes, sometimes the Two of Cups can involve love relationships, but it's still impatience about when is it happening? Why isn't it happening fast enough? When will it be here? The Two of Swords is very interesting because the swords represent conflict and the two represents an imbalance, but the two is wanting to balance. The Two of Swords is wanting to balance that conflict because the swords are already conflicted. So the Two of Swords oftentimes is a call to focus, a call for focus, a call for meditation, a call for focusing the mind to a very, very thin, very fine point. The Two of Coins is impatience in regards to money. When's it going to happen? Why don't I have enough money? What's wrong with me that there's not enough money? Or if you're waiting for the sale of a home or something like that, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? Again, the two represents that it is on its way, but that you need to be patient for the resolution to take place. So twos overall in my readings represent the need for patience and that things are happening in their own time. Now, threes represent the first place on the tree of life where there is a planetary correspondence, and threes correspondences are with the planet of Saturn. Now, Saturn oftentimes gets a bad reputation, but Saturn is the slow-moving planet of cause and effect. Saturn gives you everything that you've earned and that you deserve. Saturn is very slow, very methodical, but very fair. Now, with Saturn, the three also represents the beginnings of manifestation. And Saturn is that. Saturn is when things start to prove themselves because Saturn is the planet of proof. So the beginnings of manifestation are the beginnings of the proof that what you were needing to be patient for with the two is now starting to reveal itself to you. So the Three of Wands, oftentimes, since remember, wands represent work in the world and enterprise, that is the beginning of the manifestation of something that you've been working very hard on, because remember, Saturn gives us what we've earned. So you've worked really hard on something in regards to your work, and now you're starting to see the beginnings of the return of all of that effort. The Three of Cups, I call it the card of good karma, because of all of the beautiful, wonderful things spiritually that you have been doing, that you've been involved with, either with your own spiritual practice or just your kindness and giving towards other people, is coming back to you multiplied and is starting to reveal itself in the most wonderful ways. And usually the Three of Cups is Saturn of all planets, reminding you that it's time to celebrate and to pat yourself on the back and to acknowledge the fact that you've done well and that this is just the beginning. In the suit of swords, Saturn shows its more negative side, because it is the beginning of manifestation, and it is the beginning of bringing to you something you've been working long and hard on. And often that is a separation, or some sort of pain, or some sort of result of conflict because of the fact that you have not been at your best in some regard or another. The Three of Swords is called the card of separation, and that's because the negative results that you have been reaping as a result of what you have been doing need to be cut away so that you can start again. The number 3 in the suit of coins represents the beginnings of financial well-being, or other kinds of assets, whether it be real property, cars, whatever you've been working for. Now, remember that the 3 of coins is a manifestation of assets, and it doesn't come arbitrarily. It comes because of your hard work and effort, and you have been doing really well, or you wouldn't be getting this 3 of coins in your reading. And so the 3 of coins is a reminder that the things that are starting to manifest are just the beginning, because remember that Saturn is a very slow-moving planet. Now, 4s represent the planet Jupiter, and Jupiter is the planet of expansion, and it's also the planet of mercy. It's the planet of justice and the planet of goodness. So all good. It's a very benign planet. Now, 4s represent the need for order. The motto of every 4 is order is heaven's first law. So in the suit of wands, the 4 of wands is telling you that it's time for an expansion in your work. But that expansion can only happen when you bring order to your work, completing tasks that have been left unfinished or things that you've been procrastinating. That's the way to stimulate that expansion in your work, is to get things done that you've been putting off. Another way to bring that order in your work is to clean up and organize your workspace in order for you to start to see that Jupiter will underwrite your efforts, but you've got to start the ball rolling by getting order. In the suit of cups, 4 represents a spiritual order. In my readings, I mostly look at the suit of cups as a soul's journey, as your own inner being, your own spiritual self. If you think about the way that cups hold liquid, and if you were to pour the liquid out over a table, that liquid would go everywhere. So therefore, what happens in the suit of cups encompasses all of your life. If you get your spirit and your soul handled first, everything else follows, which is the esoteric meaning of seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all else will be added. So in the suit of cups, 4s represent spiritual practice. Spiritual practice. That can be your prayer practice, meditation practice, magical practice, religious practice, whatever your work is, your methodical work, in order to get yourself to connect with that inner guidance, that inner soul's journey. When you do that, remember, Jupiter comes in and underwrites your efforts. So you're going to see an expansion in your spirituality that encompasses all areas of your life. And this is really good news. In the suit of swords, 4 is also order. And remember, swords represent conflict. So the message of the 4 of swords is disengage from the conflict in order to bring order to your mind. It's an indication that there's the temptation to get involved with some sort of conflict. And this is a reminder of the power of disengagement from that conflict. And that is going to bring order to your mind, which will then call Jupiter in to expand your good. And that'll be expanding your peace and expanding the peace between you and whatever the problems that you're having with these people are. In the suit of coins, 4 represents financial expansion. Jupiter and money really go hand in hand. So the 4 of coins is an excellent card if you're looking to increase your income. But the caveat there is that if you want Jupiter to underwrite your efforts, you have to bring forth the effort. And the effort here is getting your finances in order. That means going through your bank statements. It means going through your taxes, going through your files, going through everything, even going through your wallet and making sure that your money's all facing the same way and in order. Getting order in your finances, when you have that 4 of coins in your reading, promises an expansion in your finances. Now, 5s are ruled by the planet Mars, and Mars is conflict. And sometimes conflict is warranted, especially if you need to defend yourself or sometimes even retaliate. You don't just, bury your head in the sand and let people walk all over you. Sometimes you need to stand up for yourself. But more frequently, the 5s are unnecessary conflict. And if the 5 comes up in the suit of Wands, it's probably the most benign place for that 5 to be. Because in this case, it's talking about conflict within the workplace or conflict within your own sense of enterprise and desire to move forward with your work. What that represents is a stuckness, a place where your energy is just stuck and it needs to break through so that you can go on to the next level of what your goals are, what your ambitions are, because the Wands are a positive type of ambition. Oftentimes this will manifest as irritability or sometimes arguments. In this case, it's not that you want to stifle or stop or even disengage the argument or the irritability, but you do want to move the energy so that you're not stuck in the argument or the irritability. But recognize that this particular manifestation of a 5 is often very positive because it's allowing you to move stuck energy so that you can move on to something even better. Very infrequently are fights and things like that are depicted by the 5 of Wands anything very serious. It's usually something actually quite positive that just needs to get the energy moved. Now, the 5 of Cups is a very conflicted sense of spiritual living. Things like depression, forlornment, dark night of the soul, fear, and very negative, tense emotions. And the 5 of Cups can seem very lonely at times as well. And so that's when that Mars energy can really move into some pain inside you. Secrecy, negative secrecy, sick secrets, things that you don't want revealed. And just living within that muck of depression. The 5 of Swords is a very cruel card because 5s represent conflict and so do swords. The 5 of Swords is the conflict of conflict, and that can really depict some abusive type behavior. It can depict bullying, cruelty, child abuse, spousal abuse, hatred, vengeance, and all manner of conflict that has no positive use whatsoever. So when you notice the 5 of Swords in a reading, it's usually a call to disengage completely with some sort of situation because no good's going to come out of it until there's a resolution, and that resolution needs to happen without your involvement. Now, the 5 of Coins is conflict with your finances. So fights over money, but also inner conflict with money. And this is the fear of poverty, if not actual poverty, the loss of income, the loss of money, making bad mistakes with your finances, just allowing yourself to be ruled by conflict in regards to money and not thinking wisely. Now, the 6s represent the sun, S-U-N. And the sun, if you think about it, represents that which is all power to us here. Imagine if the sun just decided one day, not going to shine anymore. We'd all die. There'd be no hope for us. It doesn't matter what we did. We couldn't pass any kind of legislation to stop that. It would just be curtains, and there's nothing we could do about it. So conversely, everything the sun gives us are things that we cannot give ourselves. And so therefore, when a 6 shows up in your reading, it represents that spiritual sun, that universal sun that brings you life itself. It's the principle of life itself. And it does for you what you cannot do for yourself, and it represents a higher power that can perform what are called miracles. So sphere number 6 represents the miraculous, and it represents what is known as salvation, which simply means the solving of problems. I call that the solar light. And that's a tool that I use when I want to align myself with sphere number 6 on the tree of life. And I have meditations on the solar light. If you're interested, you can look those up on my YouTube channel. But when the 6 shows up as wands, that means that your business, your enterprise, your work in the world is your higher self calling you to dedicate your spiritual being to your work and vice versa, so that your work is an extension of infinite intelligence's will. You will see miracles in regards to your work and things just turning around in regards to your work when you see a 6 of wands. And this is because you have allowed that higher power to work through your work and to do higher work that you wouldn't be able to be capable of doing all on your own. Now, if that 6 shows up in the suit of cups, it's a very, very powerful thing, because remember that cups represent your soul and your inner workings, and the cups represent that which is all-encompassing and that flows everywhere. And so when you have that beautiful solar light moving through your life, doing for you what you cannot do for yourself, bringing you miracles and bringing you salvation or the solving of problems in ways that you could never do or come up with on your own, then that means that that power is moving through every aspect of your life, and your life is truly blessed. And this is an indication to step back, at least for the time being, and let a higher power work through you. Now, if the 6 comes in the suit of swords, there is some kind of fight or conflict or relationship problem. There's some issue in your life which is very conflicted that can only be healed by this solar light, by this higher power. And that it's up to you to completely relinquish this situation to this higher power, because there's nothing you can do. In fact, whatever you do with this problem is only going to make things worse, not better. So this is all about you relinquishing this situation, this conflict, to a higher power and letting that solar light work through you in order for that resolution to happen. And remember that the sun can do for you everything that you can't do for yourself, but you have to recognize in this particular situation, this card came up to remind you, you can't fix this one yourself. Now, in the suit of coins, it's a very blessed day for money when that 6 of coins comes up, because that higher power, that solar light, is bringing you prosperity on a financial level that you could never find yourself. It's a financial miracle is usually what that is. And the more you say yes to that financial miracle, the better. And this is, again, something that you can't bring to yourself. So this is a gift straight from Spirit, and it's a very beautiful thing. The 7s are ruled by the planet Venus on the tree of life. Venus, interestingly enough, is called victory on the tree of life. And the reason why Venus is called victory is not because Venus fights to the death. It's because Venus has eternality. Venus always brings beauty, and beauty always triumphs over everything. It's sort of like if you see the flowers coming up through the concrete, that's a type of victory, and that's Venus. Venus brings beauty, and that's Venus's healing. And when you have a 7, on the old cartomancy, the 7s always represented a change of luck for the better. Lucky 7s. And what that means is that Venus is always bringing you some sort of an upgrade or turnaround. So when you have a 7, it usually represents that there was a problem that you are solving or figuring out, or that there's some sort of an upgrade, an old way of doing something that you found a new way to get there, a new way to do something. And it's a way of bringing more and more beauty into whatever it is that you're doing. So in the suit of wands, the 7 is a beautifying of your work, a beautifying of your purpose. Since it's an upgrade, it can represent a job change for the better, or a promotion, or a raise in pay, maybe even a moving of your office to a nicer place with more beautiful surroundings. It can also represent an upgrade of your equipment that you use in your work. So whatever the upgrades that are necessary in your work and the beautification of your workspace, that's all represented by the 7 of wands. Now, when that 7 is in the suit of cups, Remember, that's an all-encompassing suit because water flows everywhere. And that's that inner world. It's that inner soul, that's inner purpose, your spiritual life. That 7 loves to bring beauty everywhere it can when you get these 7 of Cups. And that 7 of Cups, very differently from what you'll see in some other interpretations of what this means, represents a beautification on all lines, an upgrade on all lines. It's almost as though your whole life turns around when you get the 7 of Cups, at least on some level or another. When you need an upgrade and that 7 of Cups comes into your life, it's a call to beautify everything you possibly can. Bring more beauty into your thinking especially. Think more beautiful thoughts, and then you'll see that that upgrade happens faster and faster. Now, the 7 of Swords is another upgrade. But remember, swords are conflict. There is an indication that there was some sort of problem, conflict, fight, something going on. But the 7 is your ability to upgrade, to turn it around, and to bring beauty where there was conflict. Now, it's a very beautiful card, and it's very different from what a lot of the traditional interpretations of the 7 of Swords is, because this 7 of Swords is a very positive card that is talking about having a complete turnaround. Where there was illness, there is health. Where there was poverty, there is prosperity. Where there was conflict, there is now harmony. And so this is ultimately a card of harmony and upgrade, bringing beauty where everything was so ugly. Now, the 7 of Coins represents an upgrade in your finances and a beautification in your physical environment. When you get the 7 of Coins, not only is that a financial good news of some sort, but it represents beauty in the physical. New hairstyle, new clothing, a new paint job, a new beauty somewhere in your surroundings, in your physical surroundings. But again, coins are oftentimes money. So there is a beautification in your finances. And that means that there's an upgrade. So you'll get a raise in pay, perhaps, a new source of income. Somehow there is complete turnaround or upgrade in your finances. The 8s are represented by the planet Mercury. Mercury has so many different facets to it. Mercury can be the quick-moving planet. Mercury can be the intellectual planet. Mercury can be the communication planet. Mercury can be the commuting planet. So there's so many different ways that Mercury likes to manifest. And each of the suits of cards tends to have Mercury manifesting in a different way. So the 8 of Wands represents Mercury as Quicksilver, as quickly happening. When you have the 8 of Wands, that represents various projects that you've had going on coming to an end very quickly. When you've had too many irons in the fire, when you've had too many things going on, it's an ending to all of that. The 8 of Wands can just represent the endings of worn out things or things that no longer serve you, ending very, very quickly. It's a very positive card, but sometimes it can be a startling card when things come to an end so quickly with the 8 of Wands. The 8 of Cups represents Mercury as intuition and learning, communication on a spiritual level. The 8 of Cups can be things like telepathy and psychic development and seeing auras. And very often, it's also the card of intuitive knowing and learning to be guided by that intuition, by your gut, by your hunches, and by that inner guide. The 8 of Swords very frequently represents Mercury as obsessive thought, being trapped in thought loops in your own mind where you can't stop thinking about something. And it tends to churn and churn and churn. And everybody knows what it feels like when your mind starts to churn and you can't stop thinking about something horrible. That's the 8 of Swords. And the 8 of Swords, when it comes up in your reading, is calling on you to have an ending to that, to break out of that, to stop the obsessive thought, because you are walling yourself off in a prison of your own mind. The 8 of Coins represents Mercury as the law of as above, so below. So especially in regards to finance and assets, it's talking about what you bring to any transaction or interaction is the energy that you're going to get back from that transaction or interaction. So it's calling on you to notice the attitudes that you have when you spend money, when you make agreements with people, when you have interactions with people. If you're coming with an expectation of being upset, then you're going to have something to be upset about. If you're coming to paying a bill with being resentful of how expensive it is, you're going to have more to be resentful of. Whereas if you take that same bill, say it's your electric bill, and you become grateful for the fact that it's buying you the lights on and buying you the air conditioning and buying you powering your computer and all of the wonderful things that electricity does, and thinking in terms of what you're grateful for while you're paying that bill, then the universe is going to bring you more to be grateful about. So it's very much being aware of the energy that you show up with in any situation, especially in regards to your finances and your assets. The nines are ruled by the moon. The moon is very magnetic. Think of the tides and the emotions and all that the moon controls. And as the moon waxes and wanes and changes throughout its phases, how differently the earth will respond to that because of the magnetic pull. So it deals with your own magnetism and your own electromagnetic field. The Nine of Wands talks about overwork. So remember, the wands are your work in the world, but the moon is not always so complementary with that suit. So when I see a Nine of Wands, people aren't getting the rest they need. They are overtaxing their electromagnetic system. They need more downtime. They need more sleep. They need to stop burning the candle at both ends. The Nine of Cups is a very great place for the nines, for the moon, because the moon is very at home in cups. And so that's talking about the magnetism of your aura, being able to really allow yourself to draw to you that which you desire. But there's also, with that Nine of Cups, a reminder to keep your energy focused on that which you desire, because you are very magnetic when a nine shows up in the reading. But almost always it's a very positive card, and just being aware that you are drawing to you that which you desire simply by sitting and thinking kindly about that which you desire. The Nine of Swords has to do with worry. That magnetism starts to draw to you that which you do not want, and it's based on the fact that you are involved in worry. And when you're involved in worry, that means you're trying to live in the future rather than the present. And there's so much tension and so much anxiety when you can't stop worrying about something. And what you worry about tends to bring about some sort of manifestation or another that you do not want. So it's a warning to let go of the worry. As you let go of the worry, you're going to notice things clearing up in your life. The Nine of Coins has to do with your money magnetism. When you have a Nine of Coins, it usually means you're on top of the world in regards to being able to pull money into your experience. If it's not money, then it's some other kind of physical asset. And so your money magnetism is in charge when this card comes up in your reading. And so it's just a reminder that your money magnetism is high so that you can allow yourself to have more freedom as to how you spend your money when that nine is there, because you are drawing more money in as well. It's a very wealthy card. It's a very satisfied card. Now, the tens are the planetary Earth, not the element Earth, but the Earth as a planet, the Earth as our mother. And the tens are manifestation. The Ten of Wands represents burden that you carry on yourself, trying to do everything yourself. The 10 is being overcrowded by too much ambition and feeling as though you have too many responsibilities. And so the message of the 10 of Wands is often to let go of your burdens, to let things go where you're not feeling like you're responsible for each and everything. It's also a reminder to not take on other people's responsibilities as your own and to let them do their own work. Now, the Ten of Cups is a very beautiful card. It's a happy ending. all around happy ending. And this is a reminder that it's possible for you to also have a happily ever after if you are capable of living in the present moment and not living your life in the future or living your life in the past. The more you can return to the present moment, this card reminds you that that happiness and that joy can perpetuate. It's a beautiful card filled with joy and happiness. The 10 of Swords is the opposite of that. It's usually the manifestation of a lot of problems, a lot of conflicts. Very frequently, the 10 of Swords is you getting what you have been building in the negative. Very often you are working so diligently at certain grievances and grudges and problems with other people. And this is the chickens coming home to roost. And so when you get that 10 of Swords, it's a reminder that you don't want to live your life in grievance. You don't want to live your life in resentment, because this is what you get. The only thing you get is to be right. And you don't want to be right about this. So when you get that 10 of Swords, the good news is that it's already happened. It's not coming, it's happened. So now you can move on and start to rethink things and to sow different seeds so you don't keep getting that kind of a result again and again. Now the 10 of Coins is a beautiful card of prosperity. It's a financial happy outcome. It's your financial dreams coming true. And if it's not finances, it's some other kind of worldly asset or things in the physical world working out for you in such beautiful ways, well beyond what you were expecting. And it's a beautiful card filled with joy and happiness. And those are the pips. I'll work on another video to talk about the court cards, and then another video on the trump cards. I hope this has been helpful to you. Thank you so much for listening. Blessed be.